I don't share Adele's hometown glory. Kelsey Ballerini's Half of My Hometown made me laugh because half of my hometown is dead. The place I grew up was hell. They say if you're going through hell, keep going. But where can you go when you're a child, dependent on parents that shouldn't have brought you into this world in the first place? I knew I had telekinetic powers from a young age. My mother lashed me with her belt when she caught me using what she called my tools from the devil, despite my abilities as a child being little more than party tricks. If it came across like I idolized my father in previous episodes, it's because he showed me genuine love, and I can't say that about many people from my childhood. But he knew what my mother was up to, and he did nothing. I still have the scars. And I'm not just talking about those on my back. Damon thinks I was pushed to breaking point and snapped at my graduation ceremony. I want to tell him he's wrong, that I spent years planning and preparing for the massacre. But I'm scared he'll hate me. From the age of 14, I snuck into school at night to practice breaking the legs from the wooden chairs used at graduation. The staff kept ordering more seats because they were mysteriously disappearing. Sometimes the legs snapped too smoothly. They needed to be sharp to impale my dolls. With practice, I perfected breaking the chairs how I wanted, but after this, my plan failed. I had to be looking directly at an object to move it with my mind, so I could only raise a few chair legs at a time, and it was difficult to impale the dolls any other way than one by one. It was painfully slow, and the force required to drive the makeshift stakes through my toys made me faint after destroying just 2 or 3. My dream of punishing the town that demeaned me was just that, a pipe dream. I wasn't strong enough, no matter how much I practiced. But I've jumped ahead. Let's go back to the beginning. They called me Smelly Ella in primary school. I think Leo Wright started it. You've probably suffered similar teasing if your name is Ellie, Kelly, or Shelley. Except, I really did stink because my mother sent me to school unwashed. My father was always busy with work, struggling to make ends meet. The taunts continued even when I started bathing myself. But the bullying wasn't too bad at that age. Nobody could think of anything better than Smelly Ella. And no one got physical. Until I encountered Calvin Maunders. He was 8 years older. He started following me home every day with his dumb mates. They would push me down, kick me, steal my belongings. My mother wasn't concerned when I came home bruised and bleeding. She said I deserved it. My father reported it to the head teacher of Calvin's school and mine, but Calvin and his friends had been expelled, so apparently nothing could be done. I was under no illusion that anyone at school cared. I didn't understand my powers at that age, so I couldn't attempt to use them against Calvin. It also took me years to overcome my mother's attempts to condition me against using telekinesis. At middle school, I was mocked for gaining weight. It makes me angry to think about. We all have different bodies and metabolisms. No one deserves to be made to feel like they're somehow lesser because of their size or shape. I had no friends, except Sophie. She always seemed sad. I didn't understand because she was pretty and popular, and nobody made fun of her. It was strange that she wanted to spend time with me. I thought it was a joke at first, but she was kind, even when her friends were mean to her because of me. She probably felt sorry for me because she first approached me after my father died. He fell from scaffolding at work. My problems at school were nothing compared to those at home. My mother got infinitely worse without my father around. I don't know what I would have done without Sophie's support. Her father, Brutus, was the mayor, and they lived in a mansion. It seemed like a fairy tale castle to me, at least at first. Sophie showed me the tunnel in the basement that led out to the hills. We used to sit up there, looking down on our awful town. It was here she confided that her dad and stepmom were abusive. She also told me she saw her father push mine from the scaffolding. Brutus had been my father's boss. I knew there were problems at work from snippets of overheard conversations at home, but I never imagined my dad would be murdered. Sophie went missing a week later. I hoped she had run away, but her body was found after 2 months. I knew Brutus or his wife Artemis were responsible. They became numbers 2 and 3 on my hit list. Calvin was number 1, and the seed of the graduation massacre was planted in my mind. Although I hadn't planned any details yet, not even that graduation would be the venue. This idea came to me in high school. My parents never went to graduation, so it was only when I had to go as part of the choir that I learned how big a deal it was for the town. Brutus and Artemis never missed it, on account of him being mayor. Calvin's younger and smarter sister was in my grade, so I knew there was a decent chance he'd also be in attendance when it came my turn to graduate. But, as I said, I soon realized I wouldn't be able to carry out my plans and rejected the idea. I wouldn't wish my high school experience on anyone. The bullying went up 100 levels. I was teased, beaten, or spat at every single day. The teachers let it happen. I don't know if they feared the nastier students or if they just didn't care about helping weird fat Ella. I knuckled down and focused on my studies. I knew getting good grades and into college was my only way out of town and away from my mother. One teacher was supportive, Mr. Willis. He gave me extra tutoring after school on Tuesdays and Fridays for most of my high school career. He said I could call him Nick, and he became my only friend. I told him about the bullying and my mother, and he was sympathetic. Although in hindsight, I see the glaring red flag that he did nothing to actively resolve my situation at home or school. But he was a kind ear, and as I got older, I noticed his looks. I developed a crush on him, but I never acted on this or deliberately showed my feelings. I needed him as a tutor and friend more than anything else, and I knew he'd never be interested in me anyway. Graduation was soon upon us. I told Nick I wasn't planning to attend the ceremony. I didn't want to be around the other students now that my exams were over and school was out. Choir duties weren't required of graduating seniors, so I was free. He said he understood, but it would be a shame not to celebrate my hard work. He invited me to his classroom an hour before the ceremony. He said we'd have a drink together. This is where I lost my virginity to him, against my will. Afterwards, he strung me up with a noose he'd made from rope. As my life bled out, I went from being terrified to feeling relieved. I started to dream as I drifted unconscious. In the dream, I used my powers to drag a table beneath my feet. I managed to escape the noose. My legs were unsteady, causing me to fall onto the tabletop and hurt my arm, but I wasn't seriously injured. The sound of the ceremony outside traveled to my ears. Excited students, proud teachers, cliques I had never been allowed to join. My powers were thrumming in a way I'd never felt before, bursting to get out. I let them lead me to where the ceremony was taking place. I looked down at myself to see I was thinner and wearing the deep purple dress I admired in the shop window but couldn't afford. Rows of students in black cloaks and mortarboards sat on one side of the stage, their families on the other.
"Is that Ella? How did she lose weight so fast?"
Tate Robertson asked.
"Shame she's still pig ugly,"
Tilly Griffin retorted.
"And still got no sense of style."
Tate laughed. Telekinesis often feels like having invisible hands independent of my body that can reach much further than my physical arms. They also possess greater force. Force I used to snap Tilly's neck, followed by Tate's. Students nearby screamed as they slumped forward. I liked the idea of people having a moment to realize something was wrong before it really hit the fan. Then, just as I planned, I collapsed the chairs. It happened so quickly, only 4 or 5 people managed to stand up in time. Nobody was badly hurt at this point, except Tilly and Tate, of course, and only those closest to them realized something was horrifically wrong. So some people laughed as they climbed to their feet. But the general hubbub was one of confusion. What caused the chairs to collapse like that? Was it an earthquake? I raised my arms and hundreds of chair legs rose with them. It no longer mattered that I couldn't see all the legs. My power was stronger now. People shrieked or muttered in amazement at the sight of the legs floating.
It's Ella!
Someone screeched. I don't know if it was how I was standing with my arms outstretched or the look on my face that caused them to work it out. I didn't care. That's when Nick saw me. He caught my eye and turned gaunt in an instant. I smiled at him and then released the chair legs. It was satisfying seeing my tormentors and the parents that raised them, and the teachers that did nothing to help me, staked like vampires within seconds of each other. Nobody was laughing now. The survivors went into full panic mode.
Get to the sports hall. Follow emergency procedure,
Nick shouted into the microphone before rushing to leave the stage. I used the microphone wire to drag him back and string him up from the stage's metal structure. He pulled desperately at the wire noose around his neck, but failed to loosen its grip. Then he started beckoning people towards him, but nobody tried to help in the chaos. Not one person. Target number 4, dead. As I was thinking this, I realized targets 1, 2, and 3 were still on the loose. I couldn't see them anywhere. I hadn't been able to locate them when I did the staking. The chair legs outnumbered attendees, but lots of people survived because they were shielded by the crowd around them. This didn't bother me. I didn't want it to be over too quickly. It was cat and mouse, and I was the cat for the first time in my life. I started running to the parking lot. This is where the majority seemed to be fleeing. Some were headed for the sports hall, but most had the sense to realize they would be sitting ducks indoors. On the off chance Brutus, Artemis, or Calvin had decided to follow the emergency procedure, I knew they'd probably still be in the hall when I got back, so the parking lot had to be my priority. As it turned out, I later forgot about returning, so the ones that followed Nick's instructions and went to the sports hall were the ones that lived. The sound of sirens didn't deter me. I snapped necks at random with my invisible hands as people fled. Well, almost at random. If I saw somebody that had been especially nasty to me, they died. If they'd ever been kind to me, or at the very least left me alone, I let them live. Maybe. People ran harder when they saw those around dropping. Not that it did them any good.
That's her!
Leo Wright yelled, pointing at me when I reached the parking lot. The stench of burnt rubber was heavy in the air as cars sped away.
Lie down on your front. Hands where we can see them,
an armed officer called. I tore the gun from his hands and snapped his neck. An armed response unit raced into the parking lot, followed by several ambulances. I threw the armed response vehicle 10 feet into the air. Several graduates were squashed like flies when it crashed back to Earth. I realized I was going to die. The chances of taking out every armed officer were slim, but I found I didn't care, providing it was after my main targets were dead. Leo's car fled out of sight. I suspected I could still toss it without having eyes on it now, as my powers had advanced. Imagining probably would have sufficed, like with the chair legs, but I got distracted by Calvin starting his car. The jerk wasn't even waiting for his family. Brutus and Artemis were getting into their jag. I focused all my power on crushing Calvin's car into a small cube. Tears of almost euphoric relief rolled down my face as blood leaked out from the crevices of flattened metal. Brutus and Artemis must have feared they were next because they started climbing out of their vehicle in a hurry. But it was too late. It just meant Brutus's head and some of their limbs were severed when I crunched the jag. A series of bullets were fired from somewhere, but they went straight through me, as if I were a ghost. I fell to my knees, but not because of the bullets. Squashing the cars had been too much for me on top of everything else. Blood poured from my nose. I was sure I was going to faint. This sensation passed after a few minutes, but the remaining survivors were gone. What I can only describe as fighter jets landed in the parking lot. Men in army uniforms scrambled out, followed by others in suits. To my surprise, none of them had guns. I was about to snap their necks or push them away from me when one of the suited men outstretched his arm and turned his wrist. My head filled with unbearable pain. The agony is indescribable. It was far worse than my suffering at Calvin's hands or my mother's or even Nick's. I tried to use my powers, but they wouldn't work. Did this man have powers too? I managed to look up at him as the men advanced towards me. His eyes were a sharp blue. This reminds me of Damon now, but obviously not at the time. 2 army men tried to lift me, but their hands went through me like the bullets before. The pain faded, and I felt my power rapidly returning.
What the fuck?
One of them said, turning to Blue Eyes, but he looked as shocked as the rest. Then, my power exploded. The men were thrown 30 feet towards the sky before they descended. Limbs snapped as they collided with concrete. Blue Eyes landed awkwardly. His neck lay at a right angle, bone punching through skin. Then I woke up. I was lying on the table in Nick's classroom. I was overweight again and wearing my old tatty clothes, bloodied from Nick's assault. There was fresh blood, too, warm blood streaming from my nose. I got down from the table on shaky legs and staggered out of the building. The broken remains of the graduation chairs littered the grass, as did impaled bodies. Nick was still above the stage. The wire holding him creaked as he swayed in the wind. I did that. My powers must have worked in a new and different way while I was unconscious. I haven't been able to replicate it since or work out how it happened. My best guess is it had to do with experiencing trauma beforehand. My mother came striding towards me.
You stupid, stupid girl! Spawn of the devil! You've ruined my life! Cops are everywhere in town! They'll blame me!
I knew where to go. My mother followed me to Sophie's house, which fortunately was near the high school. We broke in and went through the tunnel to the hills. Then we ran. Ella Brown became Carrie Black, and later, Carrie Van Ark. In the immediate aftermath of the massacre, social media and online news outlets went crazy. But then, all reports of the incident disappeared overnight. Someone is hushing it up even now. And I'm not naive enough to believe they're out to help me. It frightens me, but it'll be okay if nobody else finds out who I am. It's Ella's problem, not Carrie's. The stress of life as a fugitive caused me to lose weight. Exercise helped me cope mentally, and I discovered a natural talent for long-distance running. This helped me gain my place at college. The scout that enrolled me looked past my incomplete paperwork because he thought I was destined for greatness. I wake up beside Damon. We slept together for the 4th time last night. It was the first time the memory of Nick didn't completely overwhelm me. "You okay?" he asks, pulling me into his arms. I kiss him in reply, trying to push Nick's face from my mind. It's a big day today. Damon is playing in the final of the football tournament, although this feels insignificant after thinking about my past. There's a knock at the door.
Your dad's here.
Tom calls from outside. Damon sighs. Ugh, he wasn't meant to get here till later. It's probably because of me, I point out. I told Gordo my name change was Damon's father's idea, but I've never met the man. We thought he wouldn't find out about me switching my last name to match his, but he phoned last week in anger over it. Damon lied and said we're planning to get married soon, so I changed my name in advance, giving his father a plausible explanation for me joining the family, so I imagine he's now keen to meet me. We quickly get dressed and go downstairs. The man in the hallway reminds me of Brutus. They don't look alike, but it's the way he holds himself. He's the type that could talk quietly and have people lean in to listen. You must be Carrie. I'm Demetrius, he says smoothly. We shake hands. He seems vaguely familiar. It's more than the Brutus connection. Have we met before? He asks. No, I'd remember, I reply, attempting to get on his good side with flattery. I think you do. I realize who he is when he removes his sunglasses. I battle to keep my face straight. He can't be allowed to see recognition in my eyes or body language. The last time I saw Demetrius, he was lying in the parking lot of my high school. His neck snapped at a right angle. His hair is grayer and his face has more lines, but the blue eyes are the same.